Are you in the market for a bread machine? Guess what? Me too! Let's look at some of the different features that you may want to think about when purchasing a machine. Hi, I'm Terry Santra and I'm the head moose at Purple Moose Designs. And I have been making our family's bread, well, most of it anyway, for a very long time, probably 15, 20 years. And over those years, I've gone through many different bread machines. And sadly, this trusty steed has gone to the big dough ball in the sky, and it's time for a new one. So I thought I'd check out what kind of advancements have been made in the machines since I bought this one. And I thought we'd go over some of those today. So the first thing you want to think about is, what are you going to use your machine for? Now this machine, this is a Hamilton Beach, and this machine has a lot of features that I just don't really use. I don't even use it to cook the bread. I only use it to make the dough. And there's two reasons for that. One is I don't like the hole that's left by the paddle. I know some people will fish out the paddle right before the cooking stage, but for me that kind of defeats the purpose of having the machine do the work for you when you have to stand around and wait for that very small window when you have to reach in there and grab the paddle out. And it still will leave a hole where the post is that the paddle sits on. And then the other reason is that I make a 2-pound loaf of dough, and I get 2 loaves of bread this size, normal loaf size of bread. If I cook it all in the machine, I get one really big loaf of bread, and then if I slice it, it doesn't fit into the toaster. So I use the machine to make the dough, and then I shape it and cook it in the conventional oven. Some of the other features that you may look for, this machine will actually make jams and jellies. Never used that. You can put a cake mix in here and it'll cook that. I've never used that either. If you are into making gluten-free bread, then you want to make sure that your machine has a gluten-free setting. The process of mixing the doughs and cooking it are a little bit different with gluten-free flours than they are with regular flour. If you want to make whole grain breads, or anything with chunky stuff like nuts and stuff in it, then you want to make sure that your machine has a setting for that as well, the whole grain setting. Another feature is some machines will have a special setting for pizza dough. I do use that one. The process of making the pizza dough is a little bit different than bread dough, so you want to make sure if that's something that you do, that your machine can do that as well. And let's see. Another feature to look for is the size loaf that it will make. Some machines will do a 1-pound loaf, they'll do a 1.5 or a 2-pound loaf, or various ones of that. I usually make the 2-pound loaf of dough, which gives me 2 loaves of bread this size. Another feature to look at is the crust darkness. They usually have light, medium, or dark. This is about a medium. But again, this is cooked in the conventional oven. But if you like really crusty, dark crust on your bread, then you want to make sure that it has a setting for that. I think that's about it for features, general features. So for me, what I was looking for was I wanted a name brand machine, because to me, if you get a name brand machine, you have a better chance of getting a quality machine. And I wanted it to have a 2-pound loaf. I wanted it to have a dough only setting, so it stops at the end of the dough making cycle and doesn't cook, because that's all I use it for. And I wanted, then the last consideration is price. Now, bread machines run anywhere from like $50, $60 on up to $500 or $600 and more, and everywhere in between. So I was looking at somewhere in the $100 range, maybe $150 max, and most of the name brand machines fall within that range. So those were the criteria that I was looking for. Now, as I mentioned, this machine does have features that I've never really used. And so I was looking to see if there was some name brand machines that were a little bit simpler. So I did all the research, looked at all the reviews, what machines were out there, and I narrowed it down to 2 different machines. One just like this one, a Hamilton Beach, and a Cuisinart machine. And the Cuisinart was actually about $20 or $30 less in price. And it was a little bit taller than this one. It was, I think it was like 1¼ to 1½ inches taller than this one. So this one normally sits on my counter underneath the upper cabinets, and I can't open the lid fully as it is. I have to pull it all the way to the edge of the counter, and then I can open the lid. So if it was a little bit taller, I can't do that. Because it was taller, it was also a little bit skinnier, so it took up a little bit less counter space. But the pan that was in it is a tall, skinny pan, whereas this one is a little bit shorter and wider. So if you're going to be cooking it, then the shape of the pan may be a consideration for you as well. So once I narrowed it down to those 2, then I had to choose which one I wanted. So which one did I get? Drum roll, please. I got the same exact machine, the Hamilton Beach. And the reason for that is, even though it costs a little bit more, I was already familiar with all the buttons, so I didn't need, there would be no learning curve to figure out what buttons to push to get what I needed. And the height difference was also a factor for me as well. So I ended up going with the same exact machine, just a little newer model. Now, I will have links in the description of this video to the 2 machines that I narrowed it down to. And I'm also going to include links for a couple of other items that, if you have a bread machine already, or if you're thinking of getting one, that would be good things to have. And one of those is a bench scraper. So this is very handy for cutting the dough, and also, as its name implies, scraping the counter of all the dough bits and stuff that get on there. Now, I actually use this all the time if I'm cutting up a lot of vegetables, for example, and I want to scoop them all up and move them. It makes it a little bit easier. But here's a tip. If you're going to get a bench scraper, make sure that the handle is solid. A lot of them have this hollow handle, and I can tell you from personal experience that gook gets in there. It's really hard to clean, and it's just gross in there. So make sure you have a solid handle on your bench scraper. Now, if you're going to use the machine just for making the dough like I do, and you're going to, excuse me, you're going to make the 2-pound loaf, and you want to get 2 loaves of bread, then you need a 1½ quart loaf pan, which is a little bit smaller than normal, but that will give you this normal sized loaf of bread, 2 of them actually. And then the last thing, if you already own a bread machine or you're going to get one, I cannot recommend this book enough. This is called the Bread Lover's Bread Machine Cookbook. Now, all the recipes in here, and as you can see, there are a ton of them. All the recipes in here are geared towards using a bread machine. Doesn't matter what model or brand that you have, it will work with all of them. The whole beginning chapters in this talk about how to adapt the recipes to your particular machine. Different machines have different order that you put the ingredients into. So they talk about that. There's also recipes in here for 1-pound loaves or 2-pound loaves or 1½. And there's recipes for everything from simple white bread like this one to whole grain breads, gluten-free breads, pizza dough, biscuits and rolls, sourdoughs, artisan breads. There's all kinds of ones in here. So if you get this book, I recommend page, I think it's 52. Nope. It's 44. For a simple white loaf of bread. There's also, you can make artisan breads. I love making those. And so anyway, great book. Cannot recommend it enough. I've had this one, I got this in 2000, so I've had this one over 20 years. As you can tell by the dog ears and pages that I've marked, I do use it a lot. So highly recommend this book. So there you have it. Things to think about for a new bread machine in your life. And hopefully your family will fall in love with bread just like mine has. And they have now demanded that only I can make bread. So if you haven't had a bread machine and you're thinking about it, consider that as well. You won't be able to buy store-bought bread anymore. So there you have it. Be sure and check the links in the description of this video, and also hit like and subscribe so you can hear about future episodes. Thanks, and I hope you have bread in your future. Fresh, homemade.